Hi, guys. This is Daniel Alexander Cannon here on the Supernatural Show. And I welcome you. And I'm also welcoming a new guest today. Of course, we have our co host, the beautiful Shannon from Soul 7 Music. And,
Hello, nice to see you guys.
and we have a guest with her in person, Ray Azer. Right?
That's great.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right.
AZR.
Yeah. So we've got our Ray's actually our first live guest in studio, so that's fantastic. We're excited to do this. It's new for us and exciting, especially because of a lot of the supernatural experiences that Ray has had, and he's going to be sharing quite a bit with us today. The majority of the show will be focused on interviewing Ray, and then we are going to possibly, we'll see, possibly take a call or two at the end of the show. We'll see how that goes based on time and stuff, because I do have a little bit of a tight schedule today. I have a hot date.
Oh, hey, and I got a rehearsal, so that works out. A hot date.
Well,
Tell me about that later.
yeah. Okay. You're right. So, Mr. Ray, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Actually, this has kind of caught me off guard because I thought Shannon had me here. She knows how to twist my arm. She's had me come over, and I thought we are going to talk about the show another day.
You're on the show.
Yeah, I see that.
I messaged him that he'd be on the show. Just didn't read it.
I didn't read it correctly, but she's a sweetheart. She's a sweetheart.
So, you gave me because me and Ray have not spoken in depth previous to this, so I don't, and I did on purpose. I said, okay, don't tell me. We want to discuss all these things and various supernatural events, and I asked you for a show tagline, and you gave me the Tread Box Files, and I'm a little fascinated. So, can you tell us a little bit of where we're going there?
Yeah, I'm reading from my file here. I have what you call the Treadbox files. It's tactical reverse engineering, abduction, disseminate. And basically what that is, it's deep state stuff. I used to do investigation from 83 to 93. Ted Gunderson, the head of the FBI of LA, he retired in 79, so he was overlapping with our agency when I came into the agency in 1983. In fact, here's a picture of me when I was a baby. I actually found this. I was surprised I still had a picture of me back then. So I was field operations, and we basically pulled people out of the deep state trafficking. And we found that the CIA in different branches of government, not the entire branch, but there were pockets in there trafficking children. And part of the reason they're trafficking is to basically human engineering, the
Genetics.
the genetic engineering, hybrids and all that. I've actually seen a hybrid. And the hybrids.
I've seen a hybrid with your eyes.
Their eyes have, the one
No,
I saw.
you have seen a hybrid with your eyes.
Yes. No whites, no pupils. They walk.
I would say that's supernatural. So go ahead and describe it.
And they walk kind of.
What you say about their eyes? Back up again, please.
No whites and no pupils. They have ability to sense.
I've seen this thing around the internet talks about black-eyed babies, or are we talking something like that?
Well, I think there's different levels because they're experimenting. Our government's experimenting. They're opening a can of worms is what they're doing. You have to understand, I know people from CIA, the FBI, NSA. I had people live with me that worked at Area 51. I have friends from Area 51. The UFOs, the grays, they're all real. In fact, you're not allowed to say grays. They're called albinos. There's a lot of tension on the bases because there's a lot of power play. And it's very complicated. It's very difficult to get in and tell you the levels of, I don't want to go in that direction because it's very complicated. But through the years, I've added to my files, which again is called Treadbox files. And my heart, you just showed babies. Babies can't protect themselves. Adults, if they want to do something, they want to go good or evil, that's their choice. But little infants and children cannot have a choice. So that's why I'm putting this organization called Operation Million Mile March together. And we're going to start up in Lake Arrowhead at the Tudor House. We now have an office there. And it's going to be very difficult because we're going to have people that are going to be against us. The other side knows who I am.
Now, I'll just have to tell you, and we kind of spoke about this briefly, but I know what some people in my audience are thinking. You mentioned names that are people that are, some of them, I don't know them personally, and so I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but you mentioned names that would make a lot of people think that those people are on the inside, you might say, and that they are members of some brotherhood, this kind of thing. And I know we talked about that, and I asked you if you were a member, and you said no, that you were not. And because I just want to bring that up because I know how my viewers think, kind of, and I know they would be wondering just like I was, so I wanted to bring it up. He knows these people, he's been around these people, but he's never chosen. I imagine he's been invited, but Ray has never chosen to take that path. He chose a different path.
Well, to give you when I was a child, my great-grandfather was in the motion picture business. He was a Rosicrucianist. He died when I was 24. So he would sit in front of this pyramid, which meant nothing to me. I just thought he was into whatever his thing was. I was a biker from 15 to 20 years old. I turned my life over at 20 to the Lord. And I hung around some pretty bad stuff. My uncle was executed over a drug deal. So I like to fight. My dad raised me to learn. He taught me how to fight, how to take care of myself. But on my dad's side, they were in the political world, politicians and stuff. So I know a lot. I saw a lot. But it meant nothing to me because I was into my own little life, and I liked to fight, and I liked the biker scene. And then God had his plan. So he got a hold of me at 20 years old and then start bringing me into an understanding between good and evil. It's basically what happened.
Which actually, if I could interject, because I know a lot about your background and things, it would be very interesting to hear about how God has put you in some very supernatural experiences to do his work throughout your time fighting against child trafficking in the Inland Empire. Because I know you've had some very, interesting experiences where you were out of your own body doing things that...
Yeah, the Christian church has a hard time with this. And we have to look at Philip with the eunuch. God transported him. I sold myself completely out to the Lord, the best I could, the best of my ability. And I've seen Jesus half a dozen times. I've met Satan himself. That's hard for people to believe. But let me say this. I'm not more important than any of you. I'm more responsible because of what I've seen. Moses was to the Lord, and he was always getting in trouble. And God has chastised me. He's, with love. So God has put me in the unique positions. And when I pray, the most interesting time I had is when I first started, he took me someplace. I don't want to get into that story, but when I came back in the 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm standing there looking at my body on the couch. And I was just as real as I am right here. And my body looked just as real laying on the couch asleep. My mom knocked on the door. I turned and looked at the door because I fell asleep on the couch in the living room. And my body caught up to my spirit. And that was probably the strangest experience I ever had. It wasn't weird. It was just...
I've experienced that type of thing actually ever since I was about 5 years old. I would leave my body, and then sometimes generally it would snap back. It's like you're being yanked back in, something like that. It's really strange stuff. But I told Ray when this started, I told Ray, I said, and I'm talking to the audience, of course, guys. This is a supernatural show, and I don't. It doesn't matter to me how far out the story sounds, as long as you absolutely believe it's true. If it's truth, say it. And no, we haven't all experienced all these things, but we want to hear about it. We want to consider it for ourselves and use it to go along with everything else we know to understand our world better. And you've already said a few things that I'm curious about, to be quite honest, and some things that have experienced myself, like this outer. There's different words that people call it. I don't really know what it is. It's basically like when you fall asleep. Sometimes I will. It will feel like I sink into the bed all of a sudden. Normally it happens right away. It's like, and I can feel the bed, and I like feel like I sunk into it, and then various things happen from that point, including things attacking me, like jabbing stuff into my body and um, all kinds of weird stuff, including completely leaving my body and seeing myself back over there, kind of thing, and even having visions and sensations of flying like a Peter Pan kind of thing. Really wild, looking down at people and they're on the ground and I'm just cruising around and nobody knows I'm there. It's really strange. Did it happen in real life? No, my body was there, but it happened somehow, and it repeatedly happened ever since I was 5 years old. And so I'm excited to hear some of your in-depth stories, Ray. So please
Well,
continue.
let me try to explain to the audience and put it in simple terms. The supernatural, however you want to look at that, and the physical realm are colliding. It's coming into the last days.
That's
The
what I.
supernatural is coming out of the cracks of the
There's a
dimension.
crossing.
Yeah, and
It's like a crossroads that we're crossing.
Yeah,
Something like that.
it's all coming to a head. So all the UFO, there's two things. There's the children of God, angels, and God. Okay, holy angels. But on the other side are fallen angels, demons, devils, aliens. That's all being that's Satan. That's all being Satan's trying to hijack God's creation. It's that simple. He's trying to pervert everything that God's created because he hates God. But because God's given us a free will. And I'm going to say this because I know some Satanists are watching you out there.
Sure.
The reason Satan is having you doing disgusting things, yeah, you're getting power from him, but he's seeing you as a prisoner of war. God has, the angels are angelic. Okay, they're angelic. But we're made in the image of God. We're body, soul, and spirit. And we know who God is. Jesus is body, soul, and spirit. God the Father is the center of the soul. God the Holy Spirit is the spirit. And Jesus is the flesh, representing the flesh. But they're one God. So we are 3 in 1. So we're heirs of God. And you're handing I'm saying this to Satanists, you're handing your heirship to Satan, a created being. He doesn't like you. He hates you.
And he's going to eat you.
Yeah. So he's going to play.
He eats his own.
Yeah. He's going to play and lie to you and let you believe. But in the end, he's got you. And there's no money exchanged in hell and the abyss. They use souls. They use souls with each other as if it's for trade, for whatever they want in heaven, hell, or not heaven, but hell or the abyss and stuff. God's taken me into those and show me those depths of evil and show me.
Tell us about that story, actually. Tell us about how God is taking you into those realms to show you. I'd like to hear that story.
Well, the most interesting one that God took me, and again, I was asleep, and then I woke up and I went up. And I think I was somewhere in space. I'm not sure. I'll explain why here in a minute. But I appeared in what seemed to be like a meteor or something. It was The walls were all kind of a pink, orange, strange color, but it was like it was all rock. And about 12 foot high, maybe 14 foot high, there was a ledge that was set back 3 feet, and fallen angels were standing on it all the way around with their spears. And in the middle, as an oracle, was Moloch, the demon, half beast and half human. And he stepped out of the way. But there was a holy angel with me. His hands were on my shoulders. We just appeared. And as I looked up, I had no fear. As I looked up, I saw these angels, fallen angels, get really excited. They all like started leaning forward. And it's like, what's this? Who is this? And the angels spun me around so I could see all the angels. And then there was an opening probably about 10 foot wide, and maybe 8 foot high. I'm not sure, because the angel pushed me real quick through that. It was a porthole. But as we were entering it, I could see the universe. So I believed I was somewhere up above the earth. And it wasn't like Stargate or the movie Stargate. I ended up in a warehouse. As soon as the angel pushed me through, I was in a warehouse. So I went through, and I turned back, and there was a wall to the warehouse. Well, that was the doorway. And as I was being pushed, he was pushing me. Well, I was curious to see if these guys, because I saw the angels coming off the ledge at us. As they came, this was the neatest thing I ever seen. And this is how spiritual warfare is fought for us. As I was being pushed away and I looked back, I saw the angels, 3 angels come through that, fallen angels come through that portal. And God's holy angels came from nowhere like bullets and hit them so hard and took them to the floor. And when they hit the floor, I saw flames come off the angels' backs. And I saw the fallen angels, their flame was black. As soon as they hit them and shoved them to the floor, a black flame came out from underneath them and then snuffed out like a candle, and they couldn't move because the holy angels were on top of them. And then I came back home immediately. I was back home. But I had an angel that was huge with this wingspan to protect me. That's who we have as Christians.
Describe how the angel looks again.
What
you see?
So which angel? The fallen angels or the... Well,
let's start with the angelic angels.
The angelic angels, when they're standing still, they're sort of an ivory color glow. But when they're in war, they're whiter than your T-shirt.
You mean in the form of man?
They have a form of they look like human beings. I've seen angels with short hair, long hair, beards. They're a lot like us. Some are taller than us. Some are. I have an angel that I've seen. He's my scout angel. He goes out before me. He has a mustache, a beard. He looks human. Short hair.
That's how you've seen them. How about the fallen ones?
Fallen angels, their wings are dark. Their bodies are dark. They're not dark like black, or they have sort of a dark glow about them. Where God's holy angels, when they're fighting, they're real bright white. But when the fallen angels fight, it's almost like a black gray, sort of black gray.
Do they produce any light, or does light?
Well, the government has discovered a black flame. So I can't say that's light, but it definitely they have a fire that's black. You have to understand, and God took me to the Holy Holies, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. God is holy. God is pure. If we go back to Genesis, it said they, meaning Adam and Eve, know good and evil like us when they ate from the tree. What people don't understand, we were not to know, when we were created, we were not to know good or evil. Okay? That's why God says you can't be good enough. We were made to know God. We were made to know holiness, which is above all that. It's above all that. Okay? So when we become Christians, we're already bought back into his presence. And people say, well, I don't want to do this. We live in a world that's sorcery and witchcraft, but God's grace is sufficient and covers us. We're going to come back home holy. If the rapture comes, our body, whether it goes to heaven or not, whether he transforms our body or gives us a new body, I don't care about that. He's going to give us a body that the spirit is pure, and he's making your soul pure. So when you go, it's done. It's over with. You can't do it. It's impossible. If you sin one time, in other words, the moment you think a thought that's evil, okay, that thought comes to your mind, that's temptation. The minute you entertain it, you do that one time in your entire life, but the rest of your life is good, it's over with. You come under the condemnation of sin, it's over with. It's done. It's history. So we can't justify ourselves at all. But God created us to be higher than the angels. He created us to be heirs. Once you as a Christian understand that, you have to understand 365 times in the Bible it says, do not fear. Do not fear, because you belong to him. So the only weapon Satan has against you is fear. So when I walk into these situations in investigation in my life, I feel like, okay, this might be it. You know, I put my energy and focus on Christ. Go for it, guy. Go ahead and pull the trigger. Go ahead. You know, we'll go down together. I'll fight you. But, you know, I know where I'm going. I know who I'm with. In the subject.
Ray, I apologize. Can you, just so I can get something done that I was been communicating with Shannon on the side just to take care of it. Can you spell the way you use your last name? Can you spell it?
My real last name or A-Z?
No, just the one you told me earlier.
Okay, A-Z-O-R.
A-Z-O-R. And the first one is Ray, R-A-Y.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A-Z-O-R. Okay, I apologize. It's just wanted to square that away so that, because,
Sorry.
well, a lot of times the people who are watching will join late and they'll want to know who you are, so we need to be able to give your name.
I don't go by my real last name. It's not important. This is my nickname.
Yeah, no, it's not important. That's why I didn't require your real last name. Wow, a lot of amazing information there that you're stating. For me, I have a question. Have you ever seen angels in forms that were not human-like?
They're human-like. Oh yeah. You usually don't know they're angels until probably after the fact, if they're taking human form. I had a dog that I love very much, Roscoe. He's a Doberman. Me and him were poisoned. It was the CIA, the bad CIA. Not all CIA, not all FBI, none of it's bad. There's pockets of it in there trying to take over. But me and Roscoe would stand between, he was almost human. He would stand between me and a perpetrator. So I live in the mountains here, and I was out for a walk in the trail, and the trail went uphill. So as far as I could see quite a ways down the trail, and I could see quite a ways up the trail. And then there was a hill that came down to the trail, and then the trail's here, and then it continued down. So there's no way these two individuals could disappear as fast as they did when I met them. I met them, and they didn't say much, and they were standing there smiling. We got in a conversation, and they were nodding their head, and they were smiling, and I didn't see anything suspicious about them. Roscoe usually would know a perpetrator, and he would stand between me and if he sensed a person was bad, and kind of like growl at him or watch him real close, because he was trained like that. But these guys, he's like, no big deal, you know, and they were smiling. So at the end, I said, what's your name? And one said, my name's Michael, and the other said, Mike. I thought, that's interesting, you know. And I shook their hands, and I said, it was nice to meet you, and I got to go. So I said, Roscoe, I have him on a leash, and I turned real quick, probably 2 seconds. I looked back. They were gone. They couldn't run down that path. They could not go up the hill or down the hill or past me. They were gone. I'd say as quick as I turned back, they were gone. So they had to be angels.
And let me clarify my question again to get a little bit different response maybe, but thank you for what you just said. Are you aware of angels being in a different form that people see that they're not aware that they are angels? Like Let me just be direct. Okay. I've had in my lifetime, I've probably had, well, I'll just describe it the way I've seen it, because truly, I think I believe I know what they are, but I never, I mean, how am I to confirm it other than from scripture and historical books that talk about this subject? But in the book of Enoch talks about this. The Ezekiel's wheel talks about this. There's some things, and we're talking about orbs, balls of light. Okay, I've had them come to me, and my audience knows, many, many, many times. They come to me on the mountaintops, and they come to me at the water's edge, and normally right after sunsets, and they'll come to me and they show me things, but I don't ever have them that I'm aware of. I've never had one transition to a human form, at least not in front of me, that's for sure. Um, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the orbs, the balls of light that we see in the heavens, and also the ones that come down and can even sometimes be directly right in front of you, 30 foot over you or in front of you right there, and they appear in numbers sometimes, multiples and things like that. You have any experience with those?
I've never had experience with an orb.
Hmm.
Uh, I would just ask the Lord to show me, what it. And again, I've never experienced orbs. I
Hmm.
experienced shafts of light. I'll give an example. The Tudor house, because Bugsy Siegel was there, and there's a lot of stuff going on that the malevolent spirit. So I asked the Lord what to do. What to do with this. I don't go into. I usually don't go into um, take authority over areas unless God tells me. Because one time God told me no, and I knew it was extremely evil there. And God allows certain things for whatever reason, because He's the creator. He gets to say yay or nay, and everything, including Satan. Satan can't do any more, seriously, cannot do. And I met Satan. I'll get into that story in a minute. But
Yeah, I want
uh,
to hear that one.
yeah.
Shafts of light.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I prayed. There's a tree up there. It's 100 years old, and that's where the electricity. See, they like to pull off of energy. So if you got lights and
Hmm.
stuff, that's why they flash. When I first went to the Tudor house, I went to the pool house.
Are you referring to when you say they? Clarify who they is that likes to do that.
Demons and
Demons.
devils. There's a little bit difference between demons and devils. Demons tend to be in the abyss, which is pure chaos. Devils tend to be more orderly. Okay, and there's rank, and there's 9 levels in the demonic realm, the devil and demonic realm. So, and but everything they do, the lower demons have to submit to the hierarchy of the devils and fallen angels. Okay, and if they're not, they're tormented. They're hurt. Where in God's realm kingdom, it's not that way. It's totally opposite. Totally opposite. It's love. See, Satan comes against your mind to destroy the heart. God comes in your heart to renew the mind. Okay, to make you whole. So God leads with love, and Satan um, tears you apart with fear.
But so they're using this energy, like the
Yeah, so the
electricity.
electricity. So when I went into the pool house, it's all these ceiling lights. Now, if you know anything about electricity, there's half a dozen or a dozen light switches. So each row was hooked to a switch, and some of the switches were off, some were on, and all the lights started flashing like a Star Wars, and all the ceilings downstairs. And there was a kid there, and I said, "Does
So
this
you,
happen?"
you sound like you're describing the series of Netflix called Stranger Things.
I've never seen that, but probably so.
Yeah, they would experience when the devils and the demons would come in, the lights in the houses would start
Yeah.
pulsing and throbbing and stuff like that. So,
So I
and I'm
found
sure a lot of the things from movies like that are based in actual reality, even though they seem
well,
supernatural.
you have to understand a lot of Hollywood's messes with that stuff.
Right.
So they're
Oh
going to
yeah,
put it in movies.
I'm well aware.
So the shafts of light.
Well, I'm going to get to that. So all these lights, and there's 2 wells underneath. There's trapdoors to wells on either side of the building. They go down to Lake Arrowhead, and Lake Arrowhead's another issue. But anyway, so I went and I started praying over everything, when God told me. And I went to this tree and I prayed over it. This is a very interesting story. It's not a long story. And it's a great big, in fact, Addison's thinking about making it a historical tree because that was the first power. It was a power pole, but there's a old ladder goes up and a platform up there where they had to run electricity to the Tudor house in the 1920s when it was built. So I prayed over the tree because I knew something demonic probably with that tree because of the energy it had at one time and all that. So probably 2 weeks after I prayed over it, they have weddings up there, and these kids, there were 7 kids, and they were staying outside waiting for parents. They were teenagers, and they're talking. And one of the kids looked like a rough character. He just looked like, I'm a tough guy and all this kind of stuff. But I talked to him. I said, the stories here at the Tudor house. So I told him, basically, it was Bugsy the Seagull. I didn't get into the ghost stories or any of that kind of stuff. And
Is this the house you're talking about, Craig?
Tudor.
Well, it looks like that, but that's not the Tudor house. It's up in the
Not
villas. In the
Lake Arrowhead.
Lake Arrowhead villas.
Lake Arrowhead?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Try to include some imagery and stuff as well if I can. Lake Arrowhead.
yeah, Lake Arrowhead, 800. It's 800 Arrowhead Villa Road. That's it right there on the right.
Over here?
Yep, that's it. So I'm standing in front of that, pointing to the tree to the left of that, if you're facing it.
So it's this one right here. That?
That's it. So to the left is the tree. You can't see it. It's farther over across the street. There's a street on the left and the right. And so I told the kids about the trees. So this one kind of, I'd say he was probably 16, 17, rough character. There's a little embankment and a rock near the tree, and he walks up and he starts pointing to the tree, and the other 6 kids are down the road, and he goes, this tree, and a flash of light, it looked like it came out of a dimension. A flash of light came out like a crack of the dimension and pushed him back as he put his finger out to point to the tree and was walking towards it to touch it, pushed him back 3 feet. Him and all he ran faster than the other kids, and they all ran up the street. What was that? Well, that was an angel. That's evidence that God has taken that territory over. And then if you look at the Tudor house, there's a room on the right. You see the window at the top on the right?
Yeah.
There's Dan staying in there, and he was
In
telling
the top of the eave on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
far right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a guy staying in there, and there's all kinds of weird things that happen in that place. And he said that, and I've prayed over every inch of that. And he said that one night, his cats were getting hunchback, and this black figure showed up, scared him. And then all of a sudden, a shaft of light appeared, just like at the tree. He described it as sound like just like the one that was a tree. And the black figure left immediately, and the cats were fine. And the shaft of light just stayed there. Just stayed there. Didn't pulsate or anything, just stayed there. It illuminated the room, and it was glowing. So now God's coming in and placing his angels.
You should tell them about the concert and the angel showing up. You don't have to say
Okay,
who.
yeah. Yeah, we had a situation where we have an amphitheater. So if you're staying at that door, you're walking straight. I got to be careful names. From that front door over to the pool house, I built an amphitheater there to do for Operation Million Mile March, and our office is there now. And I have a band that was playing, and I actually stood in the middle and I poured oil. Virgin olive oil. And I said, God, I'm inviting you here. And so in the middle of the concert, the band actually got the song Edge of 17 and by Stevie Nicks. And Stevie Nicks wrote the song, and the song, Stevie Nicks actually was dating a guy where John Lennon was killed.
What's the name of the song again?
Edge of 17.
Edge of 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also about a white dove angel, or white dove wing, something like that. I can't remember all the lyrics. You can pull it
Says,
up.
I got the lyrics. The lyrics are right there.
You're singing.
Let me show you real quick. There we go. Yeah, just like the white winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing, oh, oh, oh.
Yeah. And it would be like angels showing up with that song. People say, well, it's not a Christian song. And Stevie Nicks is in the sorcery and witchcraft. Well, you know what? We as Christians need to stop doing that, because Stevie Nicks made mistakes. She kind of went along with the witch stuff. She says she doesn't believe in, she doesn't do witchcraft. She believes in angels. She believes in God. I don't, she's messed up like other people in her life.
Or anybody gets a second chance, because I
Yeah.
couldn't be doing this if you couldn't have a second chance.
But that song was from her heart, because she also lost her uncle that week, and she never lost anybody in her family. So God, to God, that would be a song that she's crying out. She's crying out.
And he can use anything to his glory. I mean,
so as soon as they got to that song, I see these two beautiful people actually sitting there in the middle, right where I poured the oil. There's a table there, but nobody's around the table. It was kind of weird. Everybody was doing all kinds of things and dancing, but it's almost like they didn't even see that they were there acknowledged. And I thought, those two people are gorgeous. They're perfect looking. And then and they knew, I knew. The minute I knew, they're like, okay, he sees us. Don't look at him. They were angels. And then somebody came up and disrupted me and, was talking to me and said, this is great and fantastic. Well, the whole atmosphere, as soon as they showed up in that song, the whole atmosphere changed. I had people come and go, I've never had such a good time in my life. Wow, this is all fantastic. They were all excited. Well, I knew the angels showing there, they changed the atmosphere. So I look back and they're gone. They're gone. So sometimes angels want you to see them, and sometimes they don't. And one other people said that they knew the angels were there. Whether they saw them or not, I don't know. So God he's doing something different. If you look at, what's his name, Brian with Korn, that turns life over to the Lord, he's not doing Christian music, but he's giving his testimony about God. It's not about religion, people. It's about a relationship. He created you to walk with him. To walk with him. That's what he wants from you.
Mm-hmm. I'm not religious either.
Yeah.
Tell us about when you met Satan.
Oh, Satan, interesting character. I met him several times.
This is going to be an interesting one here.
Buckle your seatbelts, guys.
You have to understand the Rothschilds and all them that are born and raised.
I mean, you're making a statement. I met Satan.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
It doesn't bother me if people don't believe me.
It ain't a matter of belief. Yeah. It's just that is, of course, like I told you, if you believe it's true, I want to hear it. So go for it. I'm looking forward to it.
I had some
interesting
conversations with God back years ago. Like I said, I started when I was about 30 years old, in the investigation, and everything started to happen then. So I'm going out to past LA, Thousand Oaks. I went out to Thousand Oaks, and this is my first encounter with him. I actually had a dream of a man, and in that man he had the sores on his face and everything. And I knew in the dream he was Satan. He had a carnation. His hair was slicked back. He had a suit and tie and a carnation. So I go out to Thousand Oaks, and I get onto the freeway, start getting on the freeway, and there's a guy staying with a briefcase, suit and tie, carnation. At the time, I didn't associate with the dream. And I don't stop and pick hitchhikers up. I'm, not that I wouldn't. It's just I'm always in a hurry, and that day I was in a hurry. And something just pressed on me to stop and pick this guy up. So he gets in the vehicle, and he's very quiet. But because I started investigation, I just had a knack of noticing things. He was standing in the dirt, and he had some very expensive leather shoes on. No dirt, no dust, no wrinkles in his suit and tie. It was like perfectly pressed. I thought, this is kind of weird. He almost looked like a mannequin. So he was just sitting there. I said a couple things to him, and he seemed depressed, and I felt in my heart to tell him about God. I says, I believe in Jesus Christ. And he turned. As soon as I said that, he turned to me, and he says, I'm glad you said that. And what he did, he opened up his briefcase. Well, he kind of told me a little bit about himself before we got into this. He said he was there looking for a job and that he had cancer and he's recovered cancer science. He was throwing a lot of science, not a lot, a little bit of science out there about everything. But as soon as we got in a conversation with God, he opened up his briefcase and he had 3 books. One was Holy Book, Holy Grail, Contradictions of the Bible, and I can't remember what the third one was. He had no papers. But this is interesting because I don't believe demons can read your mind. Now, I believe Satan could read my mind because God allowed it. Now, demons can see your facial expression. They can see your aura. They know how they can plant a thought and see how you react. But I really believe as a believer, they can't read your mind. So what ended up happening is as soon as I told him I believed in Christ, he attacked the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus 3 times. He said, believe he's a Messiah. I'm sorry, believe he's a prophet and a nice man, but he's not the Messiah. And he threw all kinds of stuff at me. So I'm sitting there, I go, and then I realized who he was. Then I recognized him from the dream. And I said, God, he knows who you are, and I know who you are. What do I say to him? And the Holy Spirit said it so clear to me. He said, who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am? So when I told him that, he panicked. I never seen a man squirm and worm. Now we're sitting in a truck, so he's really worming and squirming. It's a bench seat. He doesn't know how to handle it. And I said, you know, God, and this is the most interesting. We're headed towards Burbank. And I said, you know, God, I passed him right on by. I don't know why I said that. I'm thinking that I just passed him. I don't want to hear any more of this. And I said, well, we're coming up to Burbank because he told me that's where he was going. I said, where are you getting off? And there's a avenue called Pass Avenue. Pass Avenue. That's where I dropped him off. But it's interesting because as I left and I let him out of the car, he shook my hand and said, read the new Dead Sea Scrolls, which they say are counterfeit now, which I found very interesting. And I was almost going to go loop back to see if he disappeared. And I thought, no, I know who you are. God gave me a dream. We're done. But the second time I saw him was how he really is. He's about 5 foot. He's got white silver hair. He wears a silk white robe. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful. But it's interesting because God took me up when this happened, and I never seen Jesus mad. And Jesus got on his face, and this is just before Trump got voted in. And he says, it's done. It's over with. You had your chance, no more. He actually was yelling. I've never seen Jesus yell in the half the times I've seen him. And he turned away from Satan, and Satan put his hands up like, but. He turned back and he said, I told you, it's done. It's over with. No more. And he walked away. And then I came back. So I knew things were going to
a lot of your experiences remind me of reading the book of Enoch, you know, because you're describing truly supernatural experiences that, like you said in the beginning, would be hard for a lot of people to understand. But I mean, I have had truly supernatural things happen to me. I've been removed out of accidents and things that don't make any sense, of where I should have died and vehicles should have been damaged and wrecked and all kinds of things, and out of place and time, taken here and there kind of things. And then, so I would say to the people that are watching, you know, don't shut your mind down, you know, and listening to Ray's stories. I would say all stories should be listened to, and all stories should be considered carefully. But if you shut your mind down because someone says something that you think is too supernatural to be true, I mean, because I can't imagine the thought of saying, I met Satan, or I met or talked. I mean, I met Jesus Christ. I mean, as far as me, for me, I can go, and it's pretty far out there for a lot of people. I can say I've met 50 to 100 angels. They come to me by the water's edge and on mountaintops, and I've been removed out of situations where I should have been clearly injured at least or dead, and it's happened over and over, and I've been kept here for a purpose. I can say I was made invisible, so a team of about 12 cops couldn't find me when I was standing right in front of them. I had prayed to be invisible. Um, if they came after me, I prayed to be invisible, and I had an experience like that. And they came after me, and I walked right by them, laughing, and they couldn't see me. And I'm 6'2", 300 pounds, way long hair. I'm not hard to spot, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm asking people because I'm experiencing this myself, Ray, and that is saying, wow, these are pretty amazing stories. It's like my mind wants to say something's not true or that you're being deceptive, but I don't believe you are. I think that is our conditioning. That is because I believe that you're telling the truth, and I believe you experienced this. I haven't had experiences like this, and normally when people haven't had an experience like something, they think it's maybe deceptive or maybe it's this. But I know that I've had experiences that other people haven't had. I've had experiences you haven't had. I mean, I've had a dozen angels show up in the sky right above me, floating and moving around and doing all kinds of amazing things. And yet, if I tell that to the right person, they're going to look at me and have the same kind of feelings like, whoa, you know, this is out there, you know. So really what I'm trying to do is give you some respect and ask the audience to at least listen.
Well, I can at least say this: out of all the years that I've known Ray, I've heard these stories over and over. Not one single thing has wavered. Not one change has been made to any of these. It's always been 100% from the heart. And I've been around where we've both had experiences where God has shown up with, to show, yes, this is real and this is happening.
So let's
just saying.
Well, let me say, as a child, when I was a child, and NSA, CIA, I know they've taught people how to do remote viewing, call visions, remote viewing. When I was a child, I'd have dreams that would happen, but they weren't, about the end of the world or anything like that. They were just simple little things that actually happened, but I never told anybody because I thought that was just what everybody did. When I became a biker, it all went away. I was into drugs. People talked about demons, because of the hippie era and the drugs and all that. I'm like, oh, this is a bunch of nutcases, I avoided conversations about God like, it was the plague. I had a guy corner me in an elevator and pray. And because my grandmother, my mom, and my aunt, they were prayer warriors. In fact, my mom went to church because she about had it with seeing me on the motorcycle. She saw me doing some crazy stuff. She threw her hands up. She figured she's going to lose me. So she went to church, and then after the evangelist spoke, people lined up. She got the in line because she's a humble woman. She waited to everybody. Everybody got her wait. No, you go up. So the evangelist was talking to somebody, put his hand up to the person, said, just a second, looked at my mom, and he said, God's going to save your son. She didn't even talk to him. She walked out and said, okay, he's yours, God. He's your business. So here I go from that, and as soon as I get saved, I'm walking into demons. I never believed in this stuff. This is crazy, So I didn't walk into it wanting to see
my
it.
family thinks I'm crazy with the angels that I tell them about. And then I go so far as to say there's giant hairy men running around in the forest, and then they really lose their cap.
Yeah.
So
well, science is
interjecting, but I want you to continue.
No, and it just recently come out, and you can check on it. There's a guy that came out at the Pentagon, says the aliens from outer space are demons. He's saying, don't mess with them. Don't mess with them. This is all demonic. And they actually had, you can look it up again. I don't remember the names. There were to, I believe there were scientists that took 2,000 cases of UFOs for a decade, interviewed all the people, everything. They came back with one conclusion. They said, we're not religious. We want to make sure everybody understands we're not religious. But the only way to describe all this gray and all these different aliens, it's all demonic. That's the word they put on it, demonic.
That's been my opinion is that they are they're not like how they're trying to describe them. They're like trying to describe them like they're physical beings that loaded up in some craft that flew across the giant space of billions of miles or through a wormhole or something, and then they come here for some reason and then wandering around in somebody's backyard or something other. And it's like, to me, I've always, not always, but in the last decade at least, I feel that they are from here, wherever here is, the creation's point. They're from here, and that all things are from here. Or part of God's original creation. And so I'm glad to hear. Are you saying that you feel that same way?
Well, we go back to the giants, and if you actually read about giants, and I dealt with a being that's probably 9-10 feet tall. It had horns. It was afraid of me, of all things. It grabbed a priest. I was going down Country Road as part of my investigation, and it had bat wings, and it came out of at first I saw these two nuns run out screaming, and they went out the front. It was a double door. It was big.
Sounds like you're describing a gargoyle almost.
It's technically one of the worst demons that you engage with, because NSA and CIA, they're talking to the other side. I will tell you that right now. NSA and CIA are opening a door.
Are they using the those, what's the name of those PCs that supposedly Gordy Rose had something to do with the bringing out of them, that kind of thing?
Oh,
that one I'm not familiar
where
with.
they're talking using an AI computer to talk across.
Oh yeah, I've heard that's going on. They actually,
quantum computer.
I had a friend that lived with me for a year. He was in Area 51. This is back in the 80s. They had technology that could see the other side. Literally see the other side.
I mean, see the other side of the veil, basically.
Yes.
Where we can't see in our natural state.
Yeah.
Which I think is...
Like the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. What's on the other side of the curtain?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I asked him one question. He said, they're trying to open a porthole to let him through. And I'm like, so my question to him was, Fred, what's going to do?
We're talking CERN?
No, it's not CERN. It was at Area 51.
It was at Area 51. Okay. Was it a collider?
That he didn't get into. I don't know.
I know there are more than just CERN.
Yeah, I know Russia's doing it. Russia tried to do it. What's the nuclear plant that exploded?
There's one even in
Fukushima?
UCLA.
Oh, you're talking about in Russia, the one there. Yeah.
That was a CERN situation. It wasn't the nuclear plant. But that's another story in itself. So we're playing with Pandora's box. And I said, well, if they can have these things come out of the other side, what's their plan if everything goes haywire? And he said, they'll worry about it when the time comes. What kind of plan is that?
It sounds like no plan.
Yeah.
It sounds like someone who is desperate for an end and that they don't care what the means are.
Exactly. It's like, well, so I have a friend that's CIA. She was given to the NSA when she was 10 years old to do remote viewing. And that's a whole nother new world. And her stepfather was part of a project at Area 51. And they did open the doorway, and about a 15-foot demon, so-called demon, stepped out. It was crazy. They barely could get him back in and shut the door. Literally shut the door. But they're still playing with it. They're still
You mean when you say shut the door, you mean shut the gate?
Shut the gate. Yeah.
Close the iris?
They can't come over. We have to let them over. That's how God's put this together. He's put a veil there, a wall. And it's science. that can open that gate for them to figure out the how to open a doorway so they can come out. So you see in the Revelation, it talks about them coming out of the abyss. Well, I don't believe it's God letting them out. I believe it's our government's letting them out. They're playing.
Well, surely they're fulfilling that role. They're
Yeah.
fulfilling Revelations in general. I can see them fulfilling it openly right now. Like if you go look at, for instance, SpaceX, and they launched a couple of satellites for the government about 2 years ago now, and on the satellites, I can actually show it real quick. Um, let's see, it was called yeah, it said they make patches for different launches they do, and they made these patches, and it was very interesting what was on the patches, and I'll show you here. Our time has come, and let's go SpaceX patch. Talking about them fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
We'll look at these patches as soon as I spot them here. I mean, there's a lot of patches to talk about, but these are particularly two. Oh, here we go. That's the rocket, one of the rockets. This is the Dragon that breathes fire that they launched, and that Dragon, the new starship that they're claiming. In Revelations it says that the Dragon had seven heads. Well, the Dragon capsule seats 7 people, and it breathes fire, and it's called the Dragon.
Well, the Illuminati, Scientology, all these different beliefs and religions, it's all about what demon they worship, what level they worship. Even Buddha, you look at Buddha, people don't know this. If you look at some of the older Buddha statues, they have 6 fingers, 6 toes on the statue. So you're worshiping a giant, which is a demon now. So let's look at the dollar bill, the back of the dollar bill. It's, Christians are going, well, I don't want to deal with any of this. Well, you have satanic stuff in your wallet.
Toting it around. Yeah.
You have satanic stuff in your wallet. What are you going to do? Not spend money?
And then you also, we're on the internet, meaning a net for the mind.
Yeah.
And we're using Apple phones, which is technology that came out of the tree of knowledge. All this, even the dollar, the back of the dollar and other bills, it all has, most people look at it and think they see it as 2-dimensional.
People don't even understand that they're speaking in our English. We have over 1,700 words of spelling. Spelling is a witchcraft word. Hello. Hello.
Exactly. I try not to use that word. I've been trying to take it out of my language. You see what's up on the screen here, Ray?
Yeah, I see it.
That's a patch, and it's a person. Okay, let's say on a white horse. You're familiar with Revelation 6, of course. White horse. She's got a bow, and down at the bottom of the screen, you can see there are crowns right here.
Yeah.
See the crowns?
Exactly.
So there are the crowns. There's the bow, the white horse. And it says, our time has come. And this was the launch patch for right at the beginning of the thing that happened about 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And they also had this patch, was a red horse with a rider. And he's got the swords down here. Exactly. And he's out to cause them to kill each other. The color red of blood, of course. And these are so obvious that this is the white and red horse, and that they're using the knowledge from the tree of good and evil to launch these rockets up there. And the rockets are named the Dragons, and they got them all over the sides of it. I mean, they're playing the Revelations out like a literal script.
What people don't understand, I'm saying this, Christians, they have a hard time believing this. God says my grace is sufficient. we live in a world that's dominated by fallen angels, demons, and Satan. God understands this. Now, my I asked God to really, truly, 100% know him, because here I'm walking into the pit of hell, literally, help wanting to rescue these children. So I knew I had to be real close to God. I had to be, I'm not perfect. I want your audience to understand I am not perfect. I fight fleshly things all the time. But the bottom line is I don't want to live, doing evil. Especially the more evil I see, the more it repels me, and the more I want to clean up any of my little issues. Where Satan can really get me is when I'm tired and worn out, because I get grumpy, and I can say and do things I don't particularly wish I hadn't said. But finally, God took me up to the Holy of Holies. You want to talk about supernatural? Now I'm going to give you an insight of God, because
The
I had a
Holy of
problem.
Holies. Now, I know I know you're new to my work. Man, I've done a lot of study on the Holy of Holies and the image of God, and the man being in the image of God, and a whole lot more being in the image of God. Everything's in the image of God, basically, except for the darkness, maybe. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So yeah, go for it, Ray.
So I'm sitting there and I'm praying and I'm pleading with God, and he told me to get a pencil. It was or maybe it was a pen. I can't remember. I think it was a pen. He said, look at the end of that pen. So I'm looking at the end of the pen, and see, God talks to my spirit. People say, oh, he's hearing voices. No, it says they know my voice. So the Holy Spirit lives in your spirit. If you don't ask Christ in your heart, your spirit's dead to him. But the minute you ask Christ in your heart, he comes and enters your spirit. I had a supernatural change when I got saved. I mean, he was right there and flooded my being, and all this evil came out of me. And I went from depression to, doing drugs and everything. I went in minutes. I never touched another drug. I mean, some people struggle with it, and I really feel for them. But the bottom line is, I really wanted to know all that I could know about him. And our mind is finite. But he said on the end of that pen is the entire universe. Think of Satan, the fallen angels, all my angels, you, everybody on the earth, every rock, every molecule, everything in this whole universe is on that end of that pen. So you're and he's using that as an illustration of my position of God. And he says, that's not, and you can put that in your eye and say, that's a speck in my eye, but that's not even a speck in my eye. So I went to bed that night, and he took me in the Holy of Holies. And there was no objects in the Holy of Holies. And I'm hoping I can explain this correctly. I'm standing where it's not bright light. It's everything is, there's no objects in there. There's no floor. There's no ceiling. There's nothing in front of me, nothing behind me, nothing, just his light. It's not like in the movies where you see a guy walking around, it's all white and he's talking to himself. But what came to me, well, he actually spoke to me. He says, there's no measurement. There's no beginning to me. There's no end. See, we live in a fishbowl, from here to the door, from here to the laptop, from here to Shannon. We all have measurement. Everything is measurement. Everything.
Within sight, within sound, with an ability to hear so far, with an ability to see so far. Yeah, we're in our own little bubbles.
Exactly. And he's created this for us. And I looked down and I saw I was in spirit. I was not in flesh. I saw I was, but what was interesting, I saw the blood of Christ completely covering me. And that's why he said, you can stand here in front of me. There's no other way you could have stood in front of me but by his blood. But what I saw was, again, the best I can explain, there's no beginning, there's no end to him. There never has, there's never will. Satan never knew the higher mysteries. This is what I'm going to tell people. And when I came out of that, what I realized, Satan never saw God's wrath until he rebelled against God. So in the kingdom of heaven, it was perfect. There was no need for his wrath. There was no need for his anger. All Satan saw was his love, his perfection, his softness, his kindness and all that. And I believe what Satan's decided, oh, he's a pushover. I can take over the kingdom, or I can, become a god. Not understand. I don't think he had the knowledge. I don't think he had the higher mystery of God. And when he rebelled against God, he was shocked and surprised because he was cast out of. He then saw how powerful God really was. So now he knows he's judged. He knows he's finished. I think part of him is lying to himself, hoping he can win a war with God. But the reason God took me to see Moloch, the half beast, half bull, and half human, they were in conference to what we're seeing now. They want your children. They want to sacrifice children they want war with God. They know children are precious to God.
They're trying to provoke him.
Exactly.
It's obvious they're trying to provoke him by doing as much diabolical, sinful things as they can to provoke the war. They want to provoke the end in order to try to control some aspect of it.
But you have to understand, these people, when I fought the human trafficking world, I really didn't like the pedophiles. But then God came to me. I said, God, I have to see these people in your eyes. I can't do this because I want to take them out. I want to kill them. Part of me, I actually went into therapy because I really went off the deep end. A guy came at me in martial arts and I knocked him across the deck because he hurt a kid, but it wasn't intentional. He just lost his temper. And I almost killed him. I was going to kill him. And I thought to myself, I got to pull myself together. So in my therapy, it was an ex-police officer that did the therapy with me. He said, Ray, your training kicked in. If you stopped yourself from following through, doing damage to that guy. But I said, it was awful for me to react that way to him. I don't want to do this like this anymore because I want to see it in the eyes of Christ. I don't want to see it in my eyes. Some of these perpetrators were victims as children. It doesn't excuse what they're doing, but they don't know nothing but what they've been taught. But God loves them too. So it's really God's problem. It's God's. We just need to be instruments of what God's called us to be to one another. And we need to be held accountable to God when we get a little out of whack. And it's easy for us because we get caught up in it. When I see babies, I'll say this to your audience. I stood on the grave of over 60 children under the age of 5 that were mutilated, set on fire alive, and put in military body bags. And this was done to them, to other children, to see them before these children were transported to places all over the world. That does something to a man. That's why I'm so desperate in my life to fight for these children to my dying breath. I really want to help these babies. I can't go back in the investigation. They know who I am. And they're probably going to watch this show. I'm sure they will. But the bottom line is.
Well, I hope they have fun.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think there was one of them in the, somebody caused a little stir in the chat, but I took care of it.
I was going to say, I do believe that that's, why you've been shown so many things by God, is you're a vessel to help these children. And it's a big fight that we both have been a part of, but he's seen things that are just unimaginable to anybody in this audience. And, it's sometimes really hard when you have lived such a life and seen such things. Mm-hmm. And, to where people, it's sometimes so horrific. People just, you're making it up. It's not real, but it's more real than you could ever know.
One thing Jesus said is that a prophet would never be accepted in his hometown.
Right.
Like I live in my.
Oh, we have some technical difficulties. But so
is he still there?
Yeah, he's got technical difficulties, so we'll have to come in for him. Anyways, Ray is quite an amazing individual, and I've been very honored to know you these last several years and to be able to work with you on all of these things. He's actually working on a script right now for an upcoming show. We're hoping, or movie, not sure, but it does discuss and go over the incidences he's had in his line of work fighting against child trafficking. And a lot of these things that he does, the supernatural is a big part of it, because you're fighting against principalities and spiritual means, not necessarily human flesh at this, to say the least. So in what Ray has experienced in his life has led him up to what God is giving him to do now. And I know it seems quite interesting, a lot of the stuff that he's experienced, but it is 100% true, 100% real.
Let me say this to your audience. Even, you have to understand, I started in 83. The way I got into it was I did probation for 6 years. I was counseling, and there was a male witch that was in the juvenile hall system recruiting kids right out of juvenile hall into trafficking. So I exposed the child, or I exposed the counselor, and the counselor was fired, not for religion, but for bringing in content that was not allowed to be brought in. And that led me into coming against doing investigation work against human trafficking. I didn't know what I was walking into. I seriously did not know what I was walking into. So the more we exposed this stuff, the more we had witnesses. If you have like 20 witnesses, and we had 20 witnesses here, and we had 20 witnesses there, and we had all saying the same thing. Their stories were a little different because of their perspective of what they were going through, but the foundation was the same in every person. Even when I was in the mix, I saw it with my own eyes. I'm like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. These people have lost their humanity. They have I call them maggots. They're not human.
Yeah. Y'all guys hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my internet went kaplooey for a second, but luckily I got it right back. It happens. Yeah, and I don't care, if I lose my life because of the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing, come on, bring it. I'm not even
Daniel, you and I are at the age, young people out there, they're starting their lives. They really don't want to see this kind of stuff, and
Sure.
Some of them are getting sucked into it. It's innocent, it's like that, put the frog in cold water and slowly turn up the heat. That's how they work. Yeah. But it's becoming more and more blatant now. And they want to get into the youth's minds when they're under the age of 5. So they think this is normal. We're in a fight. And you, the audience, have to make a choice. There's no more gray area. What you're seeing and knowing on Facebook and the different internet, I knew back in the 80s, I personally witnessed it, but we didn't talk about it because it was best that people didn't know. They had to be ignorant so they would feel safe and protected. But that's not anymore.
A lot of these supernatural things that we're seeing as the veil is lifting, because it's becoming more and more just in our faces. I know that they're trying to use that as a deception, so even the elect can be deceived. So, these are definitely supernatural things of God, good and evil in the battle, but we're all being made to think it's a certain way or shape or form. It's all being used in that manner. I'm not sure why I interjected that.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with why we're having this conversation today, and why Ray decided to join us, because this is very important. And the supernatural is we're talking about the veil thinning. We're talking about someone that can say, you're saying you've met angels manifest, and even Satan manifest, and I'm saying I've seen angels tons of times, and all kinds of other supernatural things removed from destruction and chaos and all kinds of things. And it's like, I don't, if anyone's paying much of attention, they should realize that something's happening, and it's not just, the like false flag kind of stuff and all that. It's much more deep than that, and it's coming. And we need to educate ourselves as well as the public, so that we do have the proper witnesses that know what's going on and can state it.
And know this too, that all of us coming out with these things isn't the easiest thing to do, because we're all being watched and monitored in one way or another, and we all get spiritually attacked on a very hardcore level when we come out in public talking about these supernatural events that are so very vital to understanding the full picture. But all three of us, I know Daniel, I know me, and I know Ray, we all get spiritually attacked coming to you with this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're out here just trying to be famous. This isn't easy for any of us to talk about.
No.
And to be honest, I'm going to say this too, because she talks about fame. I like to be in the bushes with binoculars. That's who I am. I'm around celebrities because of my parents and all that kind of stuff. But I also say this to you that's out there listening, that you're into sorcery, witchcraft, or you're on the other side. God's watching you. You might think you're watching us. But the interesting thing is God's taking me out there in your astral projection and confront you. So some of you out there probably, if you're in the deep state, you know this already. I've been there face to face with you, confronting you to turn away from what you're doing. Because God's giving you a chance to walk. You'll forget, it's gone. It's over with. If you were raised in as a child, trust me, God will take you home with him if you repent. And I know the church has a bad, it's all showmanship. But no, you sit in your bedroom and you ask, God, if Ray is who you say you are, I need you now. I didn't ask Jesus into my heart. I didn't say Jesus. I was sitting in the bedroom contemplating suicide, doing a lot of speed. I love to fight in speed. The speed was pushing me over the edge. And I said, the God of my grandmother, the God of my aunt, and the God of my mom, if you are who they say you are, I need you now. And bam. It was like a waterfall fell on me. And I felt all this evil come out of my body, literally just flush right out of me. And I was down to 160 pounds because of the speed. I had bruises. My nose has been broken. I got broken hands and everything from fighting. And I went from depression to, I must have looked like a lunatic because I was jumping and celebrating in the bedroom when I never felt such happiness and joy. And then I'm going around trying to talk to my uncle, before he was executed, and some other people like, you're nuts. You've lost your brain. But that's the impact.
Your programming's off.
Yeah. And, and then I knew I had to move shortly after that. I had to get out of town because all the influences, I just didn't want it anymore. And I put on weight immediately. I never touched another drug from that day forward. And I really didn't even have a problem with alcohol. I could take it or leave it. But I like that high, being like Superman. Okay, where's my next fight? Where's my next fight? I like that better than you ladies out there. Sorry. Yeah, it's like, okay, let's go to the bar and see some ladies. I go, is there going to be a fight? Yeah.
Right. I've known people that really enjoyed it. One of my brothers enjoys fighting. And I'm the biggest out of the whole family, and I don't like to fight. I'm not saying that something's wrong with people who do necessarily. I'm just saying I've never liked.
There's something wrong with us. Yes, I'll admit there was something. It's like, really, I look back at that and I go, really?
is what it is, you know.
It just, yeah, it just, I was hyperactive. Maybe that was part of it. And then the drugs didn't help. But that's not what I want to glorify. I want to glorify the fact that God loves us. And
Yeah.
He's a real God. He's very real. And
Well, guys, I have a little bit of a time constraint today. We're at about an hour, 21 minutes in. Is it possible that you're going to be in town a couple days or anything?
I have a lot to do with the Tudor House. I'm trying to get the nonprofit license up for Operation Million Mile March. Shannon here is with Freedom to Be with Bernadine. We're having an event at the Tudor House August 20. No,
The one that
August 12th.
we talked about and we showed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gypsy Dreams will be there to perform. They're going to be the poster child for Operation Million Mile March. Lisa McCormick's played with Tom Petty, Michael McDonald, Rod Stewart, Elton John.
You want to talk about the Million Mile March a second? Because they haven't heard you talk about it at all.
Yeah,
Whatever you would like to say.
Well, when God gave it to me, He gave it to me in 3 nights. He said Operation Million Mile March 3 times. So the first time I said, God, nobody can walk a million miles. You see, this is the human thinking, people.
Mm-hmm.
A person, I figured it out till I got okay, can a person walk a million miles in a lifetime? I said, no. You had to go 24/7 for, say, live 80 years and you could never walk a million miles. And I heard the Holy Spirit in my spirit say, no, 1 million people walk 1 mile 2 or 3 times a year. So then I got the whole picture, because God can say one word and it can mean all kinds of things that come to you. So I went back then the next night he brought it up again. And the third night he brought it up again, but he says, it's not going to go anywhere till you put the package together. This isn't it. This is my script, but I have it finished in a book like this, the whole operation and how we're going to put it together. So I need to get the license up. I created the LLC to bring in money for the nonprofit, because the nonprofit takes time. It goes to the federal government and takes 6 months to a year. Shannon knows all about that. So go ahead.
So the main purpose behind this is to raise funds to help these childhood survivors of trafficking and things along those lines, to give them a safe haven, a place to stay, that kind of thing.
And to raise awareness, of course,
right?
When you're doing that kind of thing, yeah.
Well, the other thing too is a loud voice, and it'll scare the other side that's trying to promote and damage our children.
Yeah.
But we need to focus, show them love in this too. That's going to be difficult, because a lot of these people are violent, but there's a lot of pain in there. I'm dealing with some right now that have a lot of pain. They're very angry. They're still on my path. But if you want to buy tickets, they're $20 online. It's Purple Pass. Look up Purple Pass. Then when you go in, Gypsy Dreams Tudor House, and it's August 12th. It's 20. I think our doors open at 5:30, and they start at 6:30. But we're going to also bring. This one's going to be for animals, because Freedom to Be. They use animals. How long has Freedom to Be been around?
Wow, they've been around for
over
probably
20 years.
Like about 20 years.
Yeah.
Helping like gang kids or troubled teens, troubled children, through nature and through horses, equestrian empowerment, animals, stuff of the God and love, and bundles of joy.
So these
they talking about going after the children. They absolutely are. And matter of fact, they've been after them, including us when we were children. And when they went after my son and damaged him,
I'm so sorry. So sorry.
They damaged him, and when I realized, I thank God that I had enough, whatever it took, for me to realize where the damage came from and what happened, and it set me on fire. I'm still on fire with it. I got a fire in me. They hurt my son.
How old is your son now?
He's now about 19, but he was damaged when he was 2.
Brother.
The serpent's tooth. got him when he was 2. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was just bad. And that's what that's what ultimately put the fire into me to do what I'm doing and not stop no matter what. I mean, you don't realize it, but I'm homeless right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to pray for that.
But I'm homeless, but I'm fine. I'm fine because of my Father in heaven, and He always takes care of me. And I'm also fine because I have a history of my work, and I have the support of a lot of people, and I thank them for that because I'm fine, even being homeless, doing God's work.
Praise
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it could be worse homeless. I'm in a hotel room, but it could be worse, like in the woods somewheres. But
Yeah.
thankfully, I'm not there. I can continue to do this, which is what I'm doing, and I'm very thankful to have had you on the show today, Ray. And
I
I'd hope
appreciate
you'd,
the opportunity to be here.
I'd hope that you would consider coming back again and
Yeah.
discussing some more things because an hour and a half really isn't long enough
Mhm.
to really get into too much stuff.
Maybe we
So
can do some live or some footage, with some of the events that we do for upcoming shows. We can show you guys a
yeah,
little bit of the
Yeah.
action. But
yeah,
we'll definitely have him back on. It's not
yeah.
the last time.
Yeah, you don't have to come there to hang out with Shannon to come on. You can come on with me and Shannon from another location too.
Well, let's just put it this way: Shannon will have to twist my pinky to come back.
Oh, okay. Well, she's good at that, so
Yeah.
you're in trouble then.
I'm just glad she doesn't have a 6'10" guy twisting my arm. Yeah.
All right.
Or
I think she knows a few people like that. As a matter of
She
fact.
does. Yeah. Yeah. She tried to get me to be one of those. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm too old for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to fight no more.
Yeah.
At least not. At least not with the knuckles.
No.
I can relate to that. Well, again, thank you, Ray, for coming on today. I've still got to go back and watch this again and soak in everything that you said and try to come up with complete thoughts on everything. So hopefully, at least I can communicate with you in the future in case I have any questions or anything.
yeah.
And if y'all guys out there have any questions for Ray, please leave them in the comments below. And
Follow up.
I'm sure Ray will probably check out the comments after the video, give it a day or two, and check it out, and then come back in 30 days and look again because it'll be a big difference probably. But because of my previous obligations, I am going to have to close out the show for today, huh?
I hope you have fun.
Yeah,
On a personal note.
yeah, it'd be nice. Um, I'm half kidding and half not when I said that.
There seems to be a lot of that on this show today.
Yeah.
Kidding.
But thanks for y'all guys out there too, the people that are watching, because I can tell by the numbers this is the largest show viewer wise and consistent viewership. So it's growing and we're making progress, and we hope that y'all guys not only uh, there was a level of entertainment, but mainly that there was a level of questioning and learning and trying to understand this realm of what is the supernatural, and that this world is a much more incredible place than what we ever realized. And if we'll pay attention slowly and carefully, we will be able to come to a better understanding of it. And with people like Ray and others coming on, I invite y'all guys to please visit the website, which is the Supernatural Show or the Supernatural Show, and you can submit your story there if you've got a supernatural story. We also have call-ins sometimes where you can call in. We'll put up a number where you'll be able to call. We're not going to do it today because we're about out of time here, but you can call in and talk to me and talk to Shannon, and you can also sometimes we'll have guests on just like Ray, and you maybe even can come on just like this in video format too as well. But we invite all of you to tell the truth. whatever it is, just tell the truth. And we'd love to hear about it. So please
And not
join
to
us on our
sound,
next show.
right?
What,
And
Shannon?
not to sound like a broken record, but please like, share, and subscribe.
It does help the channel to hit that little button, even though it's a little annoying for me to do it even. But it does help. And if y'all guys share it, it definitely does help because, we want to talk to as many people as we can. And no, this isn't about trying to make a bunch of money. This is about trying to tell the truth and possibly surviving in the process. So we do appreciate your support as well of our show and the work we're trying to do and sharing the truth from different people around the world that is the supernatural truth. And again, Ray, it's been a pleasure, buddy. And
Same for me. Thank you
I
for
hope I
having
get to talk to
me.
you again, Ray. I really do.
There will be another time.
All right. Deal.
God bless y'all.
All right.
God
All right,
bless.
guys. Well, thank you for joining us again today. And we will be back again within 48 hours. We're going to keep knocking them out.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a wonderful